lying in bed trying to go to sleep, talking to yourself about I can't go to sleep. Yeah, that's beautiful, isn't it? So while you're trying to go to sleep, what is it that's stopping you? Well, you're thinking. Does that make sense? Yeah, thinking rubbish. So away we go. So does all that make sense? Okay, so that's a little quick tour or map of the mind. If we look at what controls it, what makes it happen, then really what we do is we speed our brain up and we slow it down based on the circumstances that we're in. So it runs on very small amounts of electricity, and what happens is we speed it up and slow it down under the influence of those two things. So what you've actually got to do to go to sleep is relax. We've all got different methods for it. So some people say Scotch and Coke, other people say I read something, watch some TV, whatever, blah, blah, blah. How do you wake up the next day at the right time? Set the alarm clock. But take alarm out of that expression and you've just got a clock. So what makes an alarm clock an alarm clock? It stresses you. That's its job. Now, how many of you can wake up 1 second before that thing goes off and reach out and grab it? That's amazing. Inside in these 200 billion brain cells is a clock. And it knows what time you've set that one. And it's going to wake you up so you can grab it. And it's going to adjust for daylight saving. So let's take a typical situation. 90% of the time you're awake, you're operating at the conscious level. How do we know that? Because you're talking to yourself. So we'll take a typical situation. We've transported you to another city in Australia that you're not familiar with. We've given you a map and we've said, find this place. And using the map, you've got yourself into the correct street and you're walking down the street talking to yourself about, why don't they put numbers on the buildings so I can tell if I'm going up the street or down the street? Any of you had that? Before you see any numbers on the buildings, you see someone coming the other way whose face you recognise but whose name is a complete blank. Not even sure where you met them. So we talk to ourselves about other stuff now. Like, where can I hide? Before you get a chance to dive into a shop to pretend that you're going to buy something so that they go past without seeing you, before you make a move, they look up and they see you and it's the worst possible response, which is? And it's obvious they remember everything about you, you still can't remember where you met them. Every step you take towards them from then on, you're going to become more and more tense or more and more relaxed because they're the only two options. So choose me one of those two. I'm going to say, take your time with this. So under the threat of being embarrassed, we might get a bit tense. Does that make sense? Well, let's face it, unless you're the sort of person who says, oh, you beauty, here's another chance to be embarrassed. What's going to happen is you're going to get a bit tense, and so your brain's going to accelerate a little bit. It's going to move upwards, and now we're operating at the upper green line. And what have you moved away from? Memory. Because memory was in the middle bit, and we're further away from it. Does that make sense? You moved away from everything in the subconscious. There is less chance you're going to go to sleep, isn't there? Yeah. But do we remember that, or do we just notice I can't get my memory to happen? So, I don't know what women do. Men call each other mate. If someone's calling you mate, they have forgotten your name. If you are married to them, you need to work on relationships. Okay, so we have our conversation, that finishes, we both go our own separate ways. What happens 300 metres down the road? Remember the name. How come? Because the pressure goes off. You know, the most frustrating thing is you won't feel yourself crossing that red line. There's no biological signal saying, oh, we're there, everything's cool. And this is what we call the hook. And it'll explain to you lots and lots of things. I spend a lot of time at the Institute of Sport training athletes, more so privately than there. But, you know, it's a fascinating thing to see that they've got to actually be... An elite athlete's going to have to choose, relax or tense. An elite athlete's going to have to be relaxed to do their best. Does that fit? So this thing will affect all of us. So did any of you, do you know someone who studied up for an exam and at home they were doing okay? They could answer 80% of the questions okay, but in the exam room went blank. And any of you had that, or you know someone like that? Okay. Could the same thing happen in a job interview? Could the same thing happen as you headed towards a deadline? Could the same thing happen as you were trying to get your business up and running? Absolutely. In fact, this happens on lots and lots of occasions. In fact, take your mind back to the last serious argument you were involved in. Got it in your mind? Now, in an argument, would you become more relaxed or more tense? More tense? Have any of you noticed that your best line in the argument comes to you about 3 hours after the argument? And we go through this thing where we say to ourselves, I know what I should have said to the mongrel, it's almost worth ringing them up and starting again. Now, can I give you the benefit of my experience? Don't ring them. They've had 3 hours to think of what they should have said to you. If they're 5 minutes in front of you on this scale, it's going to be ugly. So really this thing, there's 1,000 examples of